Good morning. When I was living with my Uncle Victor Charles Buono in Encino, California, in the year of 1965, the newspapers wrote about his height and weight of Victor Charles, and they wrote he was 350 pounds. Well, I was there. And I didn't see Victor Charles being in the kitchen where my grandma Mart was always in the kitchen making lunches and dinners every day. But Victor hardly sat in the kitchen or eating because it was only my Uncle David and me eating, and Victor was always away from the kitchen. Victor Charles had to endure numerous newspaper clippings throughout his entire career, having to read descriptions in print of his being 6'3" and 350 pounds. It was always a reminder that he wasn't like all the rest of the skinny people in America who were supposedly normal, and they made him feel like an oddity in a freak show. In one of the newspapers that were reviewing his performance as Edwin Flagg, they wrote, "The repulsive giant, or the giant who plays a repulsive role, is Victor Buono, who is being introduced here and whom you cannot miss." But they couldn't resist from saying he was a repulsive giant. He soon got his due of appreciation when the newspapers printed how Bette and Joan made Buono a star. Victor Buono is proof positive that it takes plenty of guts to become a movie star, and no pun meant. When Victor Charles was asked how he felt acting with Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, he commented, "I felt like an altar boy invited to the council in Rome." He also said, "I found out the bigger they are, the more they help you in subtle, professional ways. I still can't believe it's me emoting with two such stars. The awe is still there, but the fear has vanished." Associated Press writer James Bacon gave a superb and completely honest description of Victor Charles's experience when performing side by side with two of the most legendary motion picture actresses, Davis and Crawford, at that time in 1962. Many great stars on the stage in television and motion pictures were brought into greatness by powerful people holding the keys to open their doors to enter into Hollywood. Victor Charles is definitely one of those fortunate ones who didn't just walk into fame, but he was catapulted there. Once they arrive through the glorious door of fame, nothing can ever take it away from them. They can possibly be tarnished, but they will always be a star. Here is a couple of headlining newspaper titles about whatever happened to Baby Jane. The first one was in the Democrat and Chronicle newspaper on December 2nd, 1962, and it printed, "The Fat Man with Bette and Joan. Did Victor Buono steal the picture?" The second was in the Star Tribune on December 2nd, 1962, and it printed, "Meet a 300-pound scene stealer. Victor Buono has a face for every occasion." On January 20th, 1963, Robert Aldrich signed a contract with Warner Brothers to direct the up-and-coming motion picture Four for Texas, starring Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. The door to success for Victor Charles hadn't just opened up, but it was kicked wide open and ushering him into a celebrity circle of dreams. When a new star performs with great actors, it's nearly impossible not to have greatness rubbing off onto their shoulders. He would no longer be seen as a struggling television actor hoping to earn enough money to put gas in his car, food in his refrigerator, and paying his house mortgage. Victor Charles was now a Hollywood star, and no one could ever take that away from him throughout his entire career. Sometime between 1962 and 1963, during the months of being in the motion picture Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, he moved out of the 3266 Bayside Walk house and he purchased a house in Encino, California. He now was one of them, among the stars of Hollywood. He now counted himself being a true professional television and motion picture actor in Hollywood. He would never live in San Diego again, and in 1963, he put all of his dark memories behind him. My grandma Mert, my Uncle David Francis, and Uncle Tony now considered the Encino house as their new home. On March 24, 1963, the motion picture Whatever Happened to Baby Jane had been selected by France as an entry in their Cannes Film Festival after winning 5 nominations to the upcoming Academy Awards in 1963. Can you imagine how Victor Charles must have felt when hearing he was nominated by the Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor? He was only 23 years old and hadn't finished college yet, and he was sandwiched in between two of the greatest actresses, Davis and Crawford. It's no wonder when my Uncle Tony told me that Victor Charles didn't have many lasting friends throughout his life. Most 23 years old men in 1963 were only working for a buck to take a young lady out for a date and saving money to fix up their broken cars. Victor Charles had just spent months working in a motion picture with Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, and director Robert Aldrich, and the spotlight of fame was shining on him. Realistically, what kind of discussion could Victor Charles honestly have with an old school buddy telling Victor that he got new tires for his car and changed his spark plugs so he could take Bonnie Brown out for hamburgers and watching a flick at the local drive-in theater? I can just see Victor Charles rolling his head saying, "Oh, that's nice. Did you have fun?" Victor Charles's name was soon being read in newspapers. 1963 Academy Awards and nominated Best Supporting Actors Omar Sharif and Victor Buono. If Robert Aldrich had cast Peter Lawford instead of Victor Charles in playing the role of Edwin Flagg in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, where would Victor Charles be then? He probably would still be living in San Diego, acting at the Old Globe Theater, and performing in television programs earning a living. There's nothing wrong with that, but he wouldn't have had the limelight of greatness surrounding him. In 1963, he wasn't just an ordinary actor kicking around Hollywood making a few bucks acting in television, but he was now playing with superstar singers of Capitol Records. Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, who perform on Las Vegas stages and who were two of the most popular motion picture actors in Hollywood. He first was surrounded by Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and now he was in the company of Hollywood giants. Victor Charles was still only 23 years old, and people throughout America were now sitting around their kitchen tables saying the name Victor Buono. He had almost gone as far as to Mars, away from the days of being a student at St. Augustine High School in San Diego. On the 35th Academy Awards night on April 8, 1963, the 5 nominees for Best Supporting Actor were Ed Begley in Sweet Bird of Youth, Victor Buono in What Happened to Baby Jane, Telly Savalas in Birdman of Alcatraz, Omar Sharif in Lawrence of Arabia, and Terence Stamp in Billy Budd. As Victor Charles sat in the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium with legendary actors and actresses on that night, he had to be giggling inside, knowing even if he didn't win the Oscar, he still would be a winner and still playing in the high stakes of Hollywood. He was the only 23 years old actor in America standing on a pedestal in Hollywood, and when he would woke up in the morning, he knew America would know the name Victor Charles Buono. The winner that night on April 8, 1963, for Best Supporting Actor was Ed Begley in the motion picture Sweet Bird of Youth. I often wonder what my step-grandfather Victor Francis must have thought that night. Knowing Victor Charles Buono, his son, was a Hollywood celebrity, I personally believe he was tremendously proud of his son, and he even may have cried with joy that night.